From the dawn of history, humans have waged wars for various reasons, dragging themselves, nature, and other creatures toward destruction. Many of these wars seem to have logical reasons, such as defending a nation against foreign invasion or striving for independence from colonial powers. However, the bizarre wars we're about to discuss today do not fall into this category. The causes of these wars are sometimes so absurd that it's hard to believe so many people died because of them. Let's dive in and learn about 3 of these wars. The first war, the War of the Wooden Bucket in Italy. Italy's history is marked by numerous internal conflicts, one of which was a war between the cities of Modena and Bologna in the 14th century. At the time, these neighboring cities were independently governed, each under its own rulers. The story began one night in 1325 when a group of bored Modena soldiers made a wager. The bravest among them would be the one who could sneak into Bologna and steal the wooden bucket used by the townspeople to draw water from the city well. A few soldiers succeeded in reaching the Bologna well and brought the bucket back to Modena. When Bologna's officials heard about this the next morning, they were furious. They declared they would not tolerate this act of invasion and humiliation. Thus, they ordered an attack, leading to a bloody battle between the soldiers of the 2 cities. This conflict resulted in around 2,000 deaths and thousands more injured. Bologna's army suffered a crushing defeat. Not only were they unable to reclaim their stolen bucket, but they also lost yet another bucket to Modena soldiers who, in a further act of mockery, stole a second one. Interestingly, just a few years ago, the people of Bologna started an online campaign demanding Modena return their original bucket. The second war, the football war. During the 1970 FIFA World Cup qualifiers, the teams of El Salvador and Honduras faced each other. In the first leg, hosted by Honduras, they won. But in the second leg, played in El Salvador, the Salvadorans claimed victory. According to the rules of the time, this meant a third decisive match had to take place in Mexico to determine the overall winner. The third match ended in a 2-2 draw in regular time. However, in extra time, El Salvador scored another goal, winning 3-2 and securing their spot in the World Cup. The rivalry surrounding the matches escalated to such a degree that it influenced diplomatic relations. Honduras expelled 11,000 Salvadoran immigrants from its territory, which prompted El Salvador to declare war on Honduras. Years earlier, the Honduran government had reclaimed lands that these immigrants had illegally occupied, causing significant strife between the 2 countries. After their football victory, El Salvador felt emboldened to seek revenge against Honduras. The war began about 3 weeks after El Salvador's World Cup qualification on July 14, 1969, with aerial and ground attacks by Salvadoran forces. Nicaragua supported Honduras by sending weapons, indirectly involving itself in the conflict. The fighting lasted for 4 days. Upon Honduras's request, the Organization of American States intervened, forcing El Salvador to agree to a ceasefire. Eventually, under pressure from UN observers, El Salvador withdrew its forces from Honduras. This brief war inflicted heavy losses on both sides. Beyond the military and economic damage, approximately 900 Salvadoran civilians and 2,000 Honduran civilians were killed. Additionally, 300,000 Salvadorans were displaced. The Salvadoran government's inability to support these refugees contributed to a civil war in El Salvador shortly after. It took a decade for relations between the 2 countries to return to normal. The third war, the War of the Golden Stool. In the late 17th century, the people of a native African tribe called the Ashanti united and brought large parts of West Africa under their control. The Ashanti king, whose realm included areas within present-day Ghana, managed to maintain the kingdom's independence for over 200 years. However, in the late 19th century, the British, who had colonized much of Africa, succeeded in conquering significant parts of Ashanti territory and exiling the Ashanti king. The Ashanti king possessed a unique throne that held great cultural and spiritual significance for the tribe. Known as the Golden Stool, it was believed to embody the soul and power of Ashanti kings and symbolize the strength of the Ashanti Empire and the spirit of its people. This stool, which resembled a kind of golden bench, was so sacred that no one except the king was allowed to sit on it. Even the king himself had to avoid touching it directly when sitting or rising. The British governor of the Ashanti, fascinated by the stool, wanted to sit on it himself. He even expressed a desire to take it back to London as a gift for Queen Victoria. This demand outraged the Ashanti people. Urged on by the Queen Mother of the tribe's leader, they rose up in rebellion against the British, sparking a fierce war. The conflict, which lasted 6 months, resulted in thousands of deaths. The British, who had previously defeated the Ashanti in earlier wars with minimal effort, faced substantial losses this time, losing over 1,000 soldiers. Despite the heavy casualties, the British emerged victorious and declared the entire Ashanti kingdom a colony of the British Empire. However, they never managed to capture the Golden Stool. The Ashanti people, determined to protect their sacred symbol, managed to hide it successfully. To this day, the Golden Stool remains with the Ashanti tribe. It is used in ceremonies during the selection of the tribal chief, who sits on it as part of the ritual. However, in modern times, the Ashanti chief holds only a ceremonial role with no political power, serving instead as a traditional figure among the local population.